So a deal was finally approved. Yes, President Biden and Speaker Kevin McCarthy have agreed on the debt ceiling. They're going to raise the debt ceiling. The United States will not default on its debts. There's no worries for Social Security, no worries for SNAP beneficiaries. You are going to get your benefits. This is really good news. But don't take my word for it. Just listen to this.
After weeks of negotiations, we have come to an agreement in principle. We still have a lot of work to do, but I believe this is an agreement in principle that's worthy of the American people.
So you see it right there. It's an agreement in principle. They still have to draft a bill. There's good news though. This is what we've been waiting for. We knew a deal was going to happen. It was just about when will the two sides come to an agreement and finally reach that deal. Well, it has happened. It happened late Saturday evening. Well, today we're going to break down what has been approved by both sides and what the next steps actually are. But first, before I get into what has been approved by both sides during this whole negotiation, you need to understand that this bill has yet to be written. We do not know what the cuts are going to look like. We know it's not Social Security though. I just want to put that out there. The deal has been struck. It's now up to the appropriations committees to begin drafting the legislation and using this deal as the framework. According to all reports, the House is going to vote on this deal, okay, what they just put in place, on Wednesday. That is actually good news because just the other day, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen stated that the X date, the official X date of when the United States would run out of money would have been June 5th. Wall Street was predicting June 8th or 9th, but Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen says June 5th. Chances are it was still June 8th or 9th, but she wanted to give herself a couple of days just in case. Now, what is in this rough framework for the bill? Well, here's what we know. There will be approximately 2 years of a raise to fiscal spending at roughly the same levels. This is what we're going to get. Okay, in order to increase the debt ceiling, we got to get 2 years of fiscal spending roughly at the same levels. Anything that has already been agreed upon as far as spending, let's say a bill was passed, they said they promised certain people or certain agencies or whoever money. That money is still going to go to those agencies. It's not being pulled back, and new legislation doesn't have to be written. So there's good news there. In 2024, the fiscal spending for non-defense spending will be set as the same levels for this year in 2023, but in 2025, we are going to see a small 1% increase. Now, in order to see this 1% increase, that's where they're going to cap it. Here's the issue. There will have to be cuts made when we go and negotiate the bill for fiscal year 2025. Okay? Again, also in 2024, for next year, the bill that has to pass by the end of September, what we know is that they are going to have to make cuts to certain programs in order to accommodate for other programs needing additional funding. For instance, Social Security. And I'm not talking about the Social Security Trust Fund, I'm talking about the Social Security Administration. If the Social Security Administration doesn't get additional funding, then we could see new beneficiaries. It could take you longer to get your benefits approved. Same thing when it comes to SNAP benefits as well. So just keep that in mind. There will be some cuts. We don't know what they're going to look like because that's what the negotiators created the framework for. Now the appropriation committees have to go and draft the bills. This could be a very complex issue, but we have until the end of September to get this done. So there's some more good news there. Another major change that is coming to the debt ceiling, or because of this debt ceiling framework, is work requirements. This deal includes additional work requirements that would be required in order for millions of Americans to access government assistance like SNAP benefits or TANF. Okay? Speaker Kevin McCarthy says this will, and I quote, lift Americans out of poverty and into the workforce. Possibly. If people are not working because they can't work, this doesn't help. If they're not working because they don't want to, this would actually work. However, just know that Medicaid has not been impacted because of this change. Okay, it's only SNAP benefits and TANF, not Medicaid. One thing is, and just to give you an idea, because I know somebody asked me the other day, well, what is this work requirement? How does this impact us? Well, originally, you had to work if you didn't have children and you weren't working. You had to be over the age of 50. Okay, if you were under the age of 50, then you had to work. Well, now instead of 50, they were bumping it up to under 55. So pretty much 44 years old and younger. If you do not have children, you must work in order to be eligible to receive this benefit. Okay, that's the only difference. It's a 5-year difference. Okay, so yes, it will impact many people. The other thing that was included into this bill was permitting reform. Now, this was included in a very limited way. Lawmakers have been pushing for permitting reform for years, arguing that there's just too much government red tape that stands in the way of building anything substantial in a reasonable amount of time. Well, the argument is still going to be there because, again, this is not changing in a drastic way. It's very small, limited changes. And again, it has been somewhat addressed. The issue is, how is it going to be addressed? So we will see what that looks like moving forward. Then we have some of the money that is coming back. This was something that Republicans really wanted. They wanted to ensure that all the money that was sent to the IRS, all the money that went to COVID, it's getting pulled back if we're not using it. Well, it has been proven that the IRS didn't need a full $80 billion. In fact, they used about $1 billion in additional funding in about a year's time. So they only used $1 billion, and it put the IRS back on track. So Republicans originally asked for $20 billion back. You don't need a full $80 billion. $60 billion would be more than enough. Let's get $20 billion of that back, and let's use that for other things. Well, part of negotiations, and at the end, they got $10 billion. So it's still a win for Republicans, a little bit of a loss for Democrats, but at the same time, they didn't need a full $80 billion, so it's still a win. Republicans were also able to get back a little bit of money from the past COVID funding. I don't know exactly how much. We will find that out very soon, but it is something, and it is going to help. Now, all this stuff probably seems like it's a done deal, and it pretty much is. The debt ceiling is going to be lifted. We are not going to default on our debts. That's good news. But you still need to keep in mind and understand that there are many conservatives from both parties that are not going to vote in favor of this bill. As to how many, well, we will have to wait and see once they vote as to who rejects the bill. Because again, we don't know the exact numbers, but what we do know is that many people are not happy. There are many conservatives from both parties that are completely upset that either they were not part of the negotiations, their say, they didn't have one. They provided some ideas, but none of their ideas were accepted and used. Again, this is a problem. But the big thing out this morning is that the deal has finally been approved. We're going to move forward. The debt ceiling has been raised. We are not going to see massive cuts. We're not going to see major changes. But as to what the deal is going to look like in the end, well, we still got months to negotiate that. So I promise I'll keep you up to date on everything that's going on. All you got to do is 2 things. First off, hit the like button on this video if you are just glad that there's somebody out there giving you just the information you need, on a daily basis. Okay? I'm just here to give you the facts. Whether it's good news or bad news, it's just the facts. That's it. So do that. Also, click that subscribe button, and I will see you guys on the next one.